welcome to Audio Documentaries with Dweezil Zappa. We're back. How are you?
Yes, I'm doing well. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
I don't know what kind of trouble we're going to get into today, but it'll surprise me.
All right. So we're going to do Via Zammata. It's been a while. This is actually the first time we've done this since we got the questions and put them up. So we got some good feedback from everybody.
Yeah, we asked people to submit some questions. So I guess there's a few. Maybe they'll get tossed into this little interview section.
They will. The ones relating to today, and then the other ones will find a special place for another time.
Okay. A special place in hell.
So let's start. So let's start at the very beginning of the album itself, the title. You want to break that one down? I know some of these answers, but you probably better storytell than me.
All right. Well, it's been a while since I've listened to the record and or worked on the record. Obviously, I was like back in 2016 is when we made the record. And so the idea of the record at the time, I used a service called Pledge. I said, okay, let's see if we can make a project that can get people involved from the ground up and see if they want to contribute to being a part of the record from the very beginning. And that service at that time was actually quite a good service. They later on ended up having many problems and the service disappeared. But it was a way to crowdfund projects. And I had this idea that I wanted to make a record and I wanted to be able to work with a lot of different people that were in the record making communities, from producers and engineers and just different people that I had never had a chance to work with, but I needed to find a way to do it. And that became the catalyst. So it was interesting because when I knew that we were going to start, we launched that Pledge campaign, and people, unbeknownst to me, I was thinking, well, this may not work. People might not be interested in participating in this way. But when we launched it, it was just peculiar because we had gone into the studio and we were there on the day that it launched. And then my phone just started going bang, 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 bang. There was all these messages, and you could see that it was people that were making contributions to be a part of the record. And we had to turn the phone off because it was just making noise. And sort of by the end of the day, I was just shocked to see how many emails had come in with people being supportive of the project. And that was a good experience to know that there were people that wanted to be able to have that one-on-one connection to say, hey, I want to be a part of this and support this. And those people got to have their names in the liner notes. And it was kind of a really fast progression of getting it all to work together. And the people that I ended up working with on the record were very diverse. And one of them was Jeff Emmerich, who was, one of my audio heroes, as he was for so many other people, because he worked on the Beatles albums and so many other things. But this was a project that I never would have been able to do if I didn't set it up as that Pledge campaign. And it ended up getting the name Via Zammata because it came from a little tiny street in Palermo, Sicily, where my father's family emigrated from this tiny little village up, just above Palermo. And the street that his family left from, there was a little tiny house, and I got to go there and I got to see this little tiny house, which was still standing, but it had nothing in it, but it still had a place where you could tie up your donkey. And but it was on a street called Via Zammata. And the translation of Zammata, of course, they probably pronounce it differently. I'm not very good at the actual pronunciation. But the translation of what the meaning of that was the sound of footsteps in water, like stepping in a puddle. But that very street ended up being renamed Via Frank Zappa. So because I had the chance to go to that little village of Partinico, which is the closest big city, I guess, is Palermo.
There's a doc on that, right? Too, or like a documentary on someone.
A movie called The Summer. Frank Zappa. What is it? The Summer of '81. I can't remember.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's worth watching. I mean, it has subtitles and stuff, but we got to go and visit the actual home of my relatives over there and stuff like that. So it was pretty cool. But all of those things kind of made it feel like the songs for the record represented a path in my life that had all these touchstones and connections. And that just kind of wrapped it all into this one thing, because the style of music on the record is varied, from song to song, which many of my records kind of have that anyway, but this one more specifically has different instrumentation and different styles and all kinds of things on it. So in a way, it was just a melting pot, and that's kind of how it ended up having that name, which is really the origin of where that emigration from Sicily to America happened. So somehow it just felt like it was the same transition in the music.
It's a good name too. It feels very Zappa-like too. It really does. For the picture, and what is this pose? What is that?
Well, it's funny because that picture was taken by my wife. We were in France at a friend's house, and we knew we had to get a picture for the album cover, and we were just like, well, the lighting's okay outside right now. Let's just take a couple pictures. And I don't really enjoy having my picture taken. And so it was one of those things where it's like, hey, I'm having my picture taken. What should I do? Aha, like stuff like that. And that ended up, one of those ended up being the album cover.
It's great. It's like you're a magician or something. It's the best post ever. It's pretty fun, actually. It was really great. So I did the program too, and I beginning of you being a grassroots thing with Megan, and you guys really doing everything yourselves. I had a problem with something with a download or something. That's when I first worked with Megan, and she was fantastic. Like 2 seconds on, hopping on it, and emails, fixing everything. So from the very beginning, you've always been, hopping on things. I
mean, that's the real challenge of this stuff, is that there's stuff you have to do in your day-to-day life to balance work and family and all these things. But then also with the website and the community and all those things, we don't employ a whole service of people. We just have to kind of get to everything ourselves. And it's not always that easy to do everything quickly. We do our very best to take care of it, but we also like to try to make sure it can run as smoothly as possible so that there aren't issues. But technology can sometimes have some hiccups, and we try to, have a support system so that people can get their questions, to their answers quickly.
No, I actually thought it was really great. That's why I was like, take your time, whatever, because it's very personal and get right back to you. And I've always loved that about this. So actually, David McCain had actually asked about working with Jeff. Getting more little stories about working with him.
So Dave McCain is a member of our community and has been for a very long time. I know David. He's been to some of my guitar classes when I've been up in Sacramento, and he's a very good guitarist himself. So his question, he asked about what was it like to work with Jeff, right? Was that the question?
Yeah.
So it was, it's the kind of thing that if you know anything about audio and the history of making records, this would be the guy that you would want to be in the room with and ask him a bunch of questions and find out how he does what he does. And he was just a very personable guy. He was not a really egocentric kind of guy, which can be the case with a lot of people who do the kind of work that he did. but I was recording a song called Truth, which had an orchestral arrangement. And I always loved the way the orchestral sounds turned out on the Beatles records, because they sounded like the classical instruments, but there was more detail and depth to them. It wasn't like what you would hear in a grand music hall while they're trying to pick up all of the ambience of that particular performance in that space. It was, you just felt like there was more detail in these things that wound up on the Beatles records. So I thought, if we're going to have a quartet in here, maybe we can see if we can get Jeff to come help us out and put the mics in the right place and give us a few tips. And we brought in some special equipment, some compressors he was used to using that were the same style as the ones from Abbey Road. And he just was such a gracious, fun person to work with. He had a smile on his face. He was happy to say, oh yeah, my experience has been, if you put the mic at this height, you get a better sound for this type of instrument. And he just sort of gave us a little tutorial, a clinic on different kinds of instruments and what you should do and which kind of mics. So it was beyond him just setting up the mics. It was this fun experience to learn about working with classical instruments in the studio. And then, of course, he shared an amazing story about how they captured that orchestral convergence on a day in the life. And he was saying that that huge sound that we hear is only one microphone that picked up everything. It's incredible that that was just a single microphone. But if you know what you're doing and you have good gear and you're in a good space, then it's possible.
That's crazy. I'd have a million questions for him besides just work on the album. I'd be like, what about this?
Well, yeah, there were definitely things that he would share, but we didn't want to become overbearing people to ask him too many questions about all that stuff. But he was just a really down to earth, friendly guy and really great at what he did. So
how old was he back then?
I mean, he was probably early 70s when we did that. But I don't remember exactly. He was just a real pleasure to get to know that day. And I love that element made it to the record. And he was also very good at recognizing which take was going to be the best one. And he helped when we were doing the strings on Dragon Master as well, because we did those two songs on the same day. And he looked at the chart. I didn't know that he was actually a pretty accomplished pianist and could read. He looked at the chart and he says, they're not going to be able to play that, because there were a couple of parts that are hard, some things with quintuplets and other things. And sure enough, we had to do a lot of editing because they couldn't play it.
That's funny. Well, that was the thing with his age, was like, 'cause it's amazing to have your ears that sharp still in your 70s. That's.
Yeah, well, I guess if you really know what you're doing and you don't listen at blazing volumes all the time, then you can be in good shape.
Too late for me.
Was that?
Yeah, exactly. Turn my hearing aid for you there.
Yeah.
So who are some of the players on this album? Obviously, is a mixture for you working on this.
It's the whole band that was my touring band at the time. So Sheila is on there. Chris Norton was on there. Ryan Brown, Kurt Morgan. And it was before Adam Minkoff was part of it. He would have been a great addition at that time. But Ben Thomas was on a few little bits of vocal things. He didn't play anything on the record, but so it was really a great exercise to be able to use the tools that I was already familiar with from all the years of touring and know what kind of textures we could bring to the studio from keyboards or live horn arrangements. And then with the string arrangement stuff, that was a separate group of musicians that had been recommended. So it was a quartet of people that had kind of worked together off and on. And,
Oh, yeah.
and I don't remember their names offhand. I'd have to look at
Well,
the liner notes.
so it's like one of your first albums you did having everybody together, like touring for a while. I mean, all your stuff's been like grouped projects. This is your first collective that you've had experience before you did the album with them a
Right.
lot.
Yeah. And it's the first record that has things that go beyond guitar, bass, and drums. On some records, I never even had any keyboards, but Confessions had like a tiny bit of piano here or there. And Shampoo Horn had a little bit of electric piano. But other than that, this was the first time there were actual other keyboards and different textures. And the thing about it was, as I had done all that touring, I really learned a lot about arranging because of taking apart my dad's songs and really seeing what they were all made of arrangement wise. Then I had a real appreciation for the fact that songs can be put together in a way where certain things can be grouped over here, and then you have something that interacts with it, and it becomes this sort of invisible puzzle. But when it works together and it's got these little elements that move together, it's really exciting, and it's fun to be a part of that when you're playing it. And so I started writing music with different textures in mind to be able to do that kind of stuff. And the song Funky 15 is a really good example of that, where I take a sort of standardized, compartmentalized rhythmic element. It's a weird one, but it's there and it's the focus. But each time it's happening, the drums play against it differently. So there's this shifting 16th note type of thing, and it just every so often it will come out to where it feels 4/4, but really it's in 15, and there's just all these weird things that keep happening as it goes by. So it's meant to feel like, hey, I could groove to this, and then at a certain point you're like, where am I? You know, and that
Yeah,
kind of thing is
that wasn't me. Good. Thanks for clearing that up.
that kind of thing is what I wouldn't have known anything about in years past, but because of the years of touring and taking apart the arrangements, like I said, that became a possibility for me to write music that had those kinds of activities involved in them, and the different textures that would make them speak a certain way. If it was all guitar, it would have a certain flavor, but because it had some horns and it had the strings and different percussion stuff, it just overall became more cinematic. And that was kind of, I think, the feel that just became the thing for the record itself. There's more cinematic elements on this record than my previous albums.
So how'd you go with the other instruments though? Did you write for the other instruments like on a computer as you've done in the past, or did you just write it and then kind of see how it went? Or
Yeah, when I was mocking things up, I would do it on the computer with just MIDI stuff. So I could hear it to see if I would even like those textures. And then once I decided, yeah, that's going to work, I would show Kurt Morgan what it was that I was working on, and then I would make sure that he could distribute the parts to each player, because I really can't read music well. Technically, I could read something really basic, but all of the other people in the band were very good readers. So it was easy once a part was constructed to then have it parted out and given to them, and they could learn their things. And generally, things would go very quickly. Recording the music wasn't difficult. We were able to concentrate on getting good sounds, and then the actual takes. I mean, I don't think we ever went beyond 4, maybe even 5 takes. It would always pretty much get it almost right away, because some of the stuff is challenging, but other things are not. When it comes to overdubs and getting really specific tones, that might take longer because that's more of a trial and error thing of trying to see how it's going to fit in and just the nuance of the sound and the performance. But the basic tracks were pretty easy to do. I think we recorded I don't know 14 songs, 15 songs in 3-4 days.
Only 12 in the album, so where are the other three?
Well,
Lost on your hard drive?
some did end up coming out, and you can find them on my website. There's a song called Fucked Up. There's another one called Saturday Girl. And is there one more? I can't remember.
It'll be, oh, there's 15, there'll be one more. Yeah. But
Yeah.
so yeah, I was asking because the sounds are really different. Like you wouldn't imagine, like you hear a song, you go, oh, that makes sense. The next guitar lick, it kind of feels like it's going together. You have a lot of sounds in this that you wouldn't normally think of. Like, how'd you think of that to go in there? And I mean, it works, but you wouldn't normally think of it. And that's the composition is really different on this album like that.
Yeah, I mean, that was just kind of the fun of it, just to see, oh, what can we do that's different here? And there's even weirdo little techniques and things like on the song On Fire, there's a cymbal bell, like these finger cymbals. And one of them, it's right after the solo, I think. I used Melodyne, which is a software thing that you usually would use to do different things to vocals. But you can change the pitch of elements, and you can extend the length of the sustain of a certain thing. So let's say you had a word that you wanted to make longer. You could actually do that. Oh, look, my phone's ringing, and I'm going to turn it off. So the
You ever tell that was a sound effect?
but so if you wanted to extend something, you could do it without really too much of a digital artifact, which was kind of amazing. So I wanted to sustain the finger cymbal, but I wanted to ramp up the pitch. So that was another thing. So I figured out how I could do that, where I could sustain the finger cymbal longer and ramp up the pitch. And it's a sound that doesn't exist in nature. So when you listen to it, it's kind of weird, but it's a cool texture.
There's a lot of stuff like that in the album. It's like that. So as we go through this, we'll hop into Rat Race, but you talk about different vocal effects. You're singing a lot more on this album.
Yeah.
In the voice effects are a little bit different. Not like, I'm not talking like Beyonce auto-tune, but you do a couple of effects to your vocals that for the songs is what it feels like.
I mean, sometimes there's elements of little things here and there. Sometimes there's distortion. Sometimes
yeah.
It's just textural things. I don't love singing. It just was a thing. It was like, well, it's my record. I might as well just sing it. Because a lot of the songs that ended up on this record are songs that were written maybe 10, 12, 15, 20 years ago. And I had made demos of some of them, and I sang them. So I was just used to the sound of my own voice. Like songs like Nothing or Billionaire's Son. Those songs are 20 years old. So there's just weird little things that, and the song What If, that's another one that's 20 years old. At one time, I was going to make a record back in around maybe 1993. And I just had a collection of different songs that I was putting together.
This one, the grunge thing was on, and you were kind of like, why bother time?
Yeah. And I was doing different stuff. There was a song that I also made a demo of at that time, which is on my website in the, what did I call it? There's like an archive kind of thing, old songs, but there's a song called Friendsville, and that was done at the same time. And we were going to record that for the album for Via Zammata, but we just ended up saying, oh, we'll do it for the next one. But I ended up just
15 years
putting the demo out. Yeah.
Okay. So Rat Race, you want to talk about the anything with the instruments or the inspiration for some of the lyrics stuff? It's kind of a fun song.
That one is a definitely different kind of tune, and it has it's the name of the instrument on the intro. It's this kind of like uh, it's not a kalimba, but it's kind of something like that, where it's got these little uh, brass. I don't even know. It's like a thumb piano type of thing, but
Oh,
it's
uh,
not amazingly in tune. So it has this Willy Wonka kind of feel to it, and it kind of just like has this bizarre crossfade rhythmically. There's some tension before the song actually starts, and there's also that vocal arrangement thing, which I put together, the oohs that follow. They come in later on the outro of the chorus, but it starts the song. So part of that background vocal that happens is forwards, and part of it's backwards, and it's mixed together to have this texture. And it's a little bit like the Beatles meet the Beach Boys meets the Bulgarian Women's Choir. It's like a just a weird choral thing,
it
and
does
that
sound weird, like it's got like an effect on it, or it's like it's off just a little bit than you normally hear it. Feels just so unearthly, you know.
yeah. So that was my desire to make that it's humanistic with the choral nature of it, but then there's some backwards swirliness and other things that just make you not know exactly what's happening, and then it's got that crossfade stuff that makes it also you just don't know where you are rhythmically until it finally comes together.
It's pretty crazy. It's like some kind of Italian horror film from the 40s.
Yeah,
That's
but then it has this this oddball like it's a really distorted bass, distorted drums. The guitar is it sounds like it's a simple thing, but then it's weird if you try to play it. It's like a very strange grouping of things. And then there's this Farfisa organ in the background that does a really simple melody line, but only sometimes, you know. So it's just this thing of like you hear it and it sounds like it's kind of a normal pop song in a way, but then if you actually try to play it, you're like, this is messed up.
well, and you know, I agree. I assume at this point we all know all of your stuff that it's hard to play. That's so many things in it. But stepping back, if you listen to it from the outside, it does feel more like probably your most pop album. But knowing that the songs are really so not pop oriented to play them, you know, to reproduce that way, and it
Yeah.
does feel more of your soundscape, like you were doing before. The other albums you had, you're really getting there. But it feels like you're combining everything now. It really is. You're showing everything now.
Yeah, and part of the songwriting element that there is a pretty big emphasis on is the background vocals and using them as the driving texture in the way that they had been used since the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. It instead of having a lot of keyboards or other things, a lot of times it was background vocals that gave you the chord progression or would hint at what the next upcoming resolution was. And it's that kind of stuff that I grew up loving, all that kind of stuff in Queen and the Beatles and Beach Boys and all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to add some of those elements in the record, but I didn't want to make it go too far towards the giant production of vocals in the 80s that would be like the Mutt Lang stuff, which I mean, Def Leppard and all those things. It's got a great sound, but it's very evocative of one specific era.
Right.
So I wanted to have big vocals, but not overly big.
Watch out for
And
the reverb.
yeah, so it's a little bit of a challenge to make that work.
Now, Dragon Master, you've talked about in the past. This is like your tie into your dad too.
Right. So Dragon Master is a heavy metal song that my dad wrote the lyrics, and I was on tour with him in 19 I guess this was 86, or I don't think it was the 88 tour. It felt like it was earlier than that, but anyway, he was in Europe and we were in Sweden, and he said I wrote these lyrics. You should write the music to this. And he handed me these lyrics, and he already was laughing as he handed them to me. So he just knew that this was a ridiculous song. And when you hear the lyrics, I mean, it's just absolutely
Right.
ridiculous. But a heavy metal act in the mid 80s, that would be dead fucking serious. You know, that would not be a joke song. That would be like, yeah, we're fucking metal, you know, and it's like this thing. So I was kind of splitting the difference here. I wanted it to have a cool metal riff that was maybe evocative of a Black Sabbath kind of thing. But I also, I wanted the delivery of the stuff to be really authentic metal, but I wanted it to also kind of have a hint that there could be some comedy to it. So the next layer of DNA to this whole thing is Ronnie James Dio's distant cousin is the guy that sings the song. Sean,
like legit?
Yeah.
I just thought it was like you wanted to be Dio-esque. I didn't actually know it was. That's even better.
Yeah. So Sean Albro, he has this super metal voice, and one of the things that we were talking about was the amazing ability of Ronnie James Dio to add extra syllables that were unnecessary but became so much more rock. So if you have the word light, it's going to be lighter, you know. So you have like the fist action and the you know. So any chance to add that extra syllable in that way, you'll hear it in that song. And it's just stuff like that, over the top vocal production.
There's some great vocals in that song, from the back and forth. It's just so good. I can't even imitate it. It's so good.
And then there's a drum fill where it's essentially the same drum fill as More Trouble Every Day that goes into the second verse. So that's another like Zappa element that's thrown into the song. So there's all kinds of levels of thematic coherence or conceptual continuity.
No such thing as just a simple song.
No.
And it's gotta feel good to kind of complete that with your dad. Have written that for you, kind of put it out there finally, you know.
Yeah, it was a fun thing because we didn't really get a chance to do anything like that specifically, to really work on writing a song or two together. There was a composition on the synclavier that he once said to me, "Hey, I want you to finish this." And I did some work on it, but the synclavier went into disrepair at some point, and I didn't know how to work it. So that piece never got completed.
Now, is there a chance it could? Because you just probably opened a wormhole between that and mentioning shampoo horn, because people are going to ask for that now too. Now, is this song going to be able to come out? Because people are going to ask.
I don't think so, because I don't even know what it was named.
Okay.
There may be compositions that existed in the computer at that time, but they didn't have a specific title, and I don't remember him having a specific title for that song.
If you mention it, it becomes a comment. So we're just going to take it out to the next list.
Yeah. Well, other than working on Having a Bad Day with him producing the songs in the studio, the only real times I got to play music with my dad was live on stage when I would sit in and talk to him about it. He would be working in the studio, and I would visit at the end of his work shifts, and he would play me whatever he was working on. And I was always asking about different sounds and equipment and whatnot. I would see what was going on and just kind of learn how he was doing it.
So next up is Malkovich, and Matt Picone actually asked about that. Want to know the whole breakdown of that one.
Yeah, well, Matt Picone is a good friend of mine, and he is a guy that is super talented and works with Fractal Audio, and he's an amazing programmer of guitar sounds and stuff. And we became friends on the Fractal forum, because we were the only two at the time that were constantly breaking the unit because we were asking it to do too much. So, so it wouldn't surprise me that Matt would have questions about Malkovich, because this song is kind of right up his alley. But that song, that was maybe the most fun song to work on the record, and it's kind of the most bizarre song on the record. The thing about the song in general is it came about because somehow I was contacted by somebody that was working on this bigger overall project with John Malkovich, where he was doing recreations of famous photographs, where he would be the subject that was in these photographs. He would portray them. So if it was two twin little girls, he would be the two twin little girls, and he would wear the hair and the costume and the whole thing. And then they would recreate the photograph, but not digitally or anything. They would do it completely. They would stage the photo shoot to recreate the dimensions and the size and the whole structure of the photograph, but then it would just be him instead of the other subject. So
I didn't see that.
So it was an art installation that they were planning, and then somehow or another they decided, you know, it would be great if there was some music that went to this art installation. And they had this idea that if John Malkovich recited something, they could give that recital to different musicians and then let them do whatever they wanted with that recital. So we all got the same vocal performance, the same material from John Malkovich.
Who else got it?
Yoko Ono, Dolores from the Cranberries. I can't remember, maybe another 7 artists, a strange collection. And I didn't hear anything anybody did. I just said, okay, this is what I'm going to do with it. So he's reciting this allegory of the cave by Plato, and most people aren't familiar with what he's talking about. And so I just made the chorus of the song, "What the fuck are you talking about?" You know, so it's Malkovich, 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 what the fuck are you talking about? And that just seemed like a funny thing to do. And I wrote the music in maybe 5 minutes. Kurt and Ryan were there. We just said, okay, let's do this. It'll be this long for this part. You know, we basically kind of just mapped it out so that we could have the energy flow in the right places. And we did this thing, and then we placed the vocal in. But one of the things that we did was he talks in a certain way, a certain cadence, and the intro has a very strange fill and melody line. I actually used Melodyne to transcribe the pitch of his speech pattern, and you can export that performance and it will make a MIDI file of the melody and the rhythm. And so then Kurt and Ryan learned that, and that became the intro to the song Malkovich. So that weird intro is because that's the pitches of his speech cadence and the rhythm of his speech cadence. And that became the tacked on intro for the song. But it has a lot of textures. I played a fretless instrument on there that's buried in with the other electric guitar. And it's an instrument called a glissentar. And it's basically like a guitar mixed with an oud. So it has the same, it's got 11 strings and it's fretless. But the way that main riff sounds, where it's kind of like it's in tune, but it's not in tune, that comes from the glissentar.
Sounds like a crazy instrument.
Yeah, it's a cool sound. I mean, I think it's one of the cooler textures on the record. Yeah, that we did that whole song, the vocals, like writing and putting the whole thing. We did the whole song, and I think it took about 8 or 9 hours, and the thing was all done.
So the question is, that probably follow-up people want to know is, it would be his reaction or whatever. And I would say this, I think this is from the time point he was pretty big too. There's a point where he was everywhere, right? This was around that time period.
Yeah, I think he's always been very popular. But here's
But
the
you know what I'm
funny,
saying? He had a lot of movies out where they were just every time you turn the TV or
right. But here's the funniest part. I've never met him. I've never talked to him.
so you've never gotten a reaction to it.
I heard he liked it,
Oh, good.
but I've never had any contact with him.
Because you can't tell because it seems like either he thinks things are really funny or not really funny, or he's so meta, like it's 5 layers in with him that, and you take the piss out of everything in all your songs. You do it in your podcast to people. That's what you do. You have fun with it. So
yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to be an asshole about things.
No. I mean,
have fun with stuff, you know.
You wouldn't have done it if you felt that way about him. It clearly is a lot of fun. All right, so we started talking before about On Fire.
Yeah, so that's a weird song that originally was at a much slower tempo, and it became much faster while we had decided to work on it in the studio. And that one does have a lot of textures too. I mean, it's got sitar on it. It's got a couple of different kinds of guitar sounds. There's clean and distorted stuff. My daughters sing background vocals on it. And this whole song came about because I was on a train in the middle of France in probably, I don't know, early 90s. And it was 100 degrees. There was no air conditioning. It smelled terrible on this train. It was kind of crowded. And there was a lady that took a tomato out of her bag. It was a big, this is a big honking tomato. And she just started eating it like an apple. And so there's a line about eating a tomato like an apple in that song.
Yeah.
And it came from that experience.
Okay. That is actually of the songs in the album. That's a song that gets stuck in my head for the longest time for like days now. That ooh you part that is it's like a brainworm, you know.
Well, it's funny because that little melody is my wife Megan sings that little melody part, and so that was like a counter melody that I added at the last minute. And since the girls were singing, and I said, Megan, you have to sing something. So I said, here, sing this part. And so that's her singing.
No, every time I just listen to it today, now it's going to be in my head now for like 3 days. That line. So nothing is really a special song because there's a part where you hit a melody. It's like angel chords. I call it. It's like that really powerful. The second, like you elevate the song, it's like a second chorus. It's kind of like is what it is. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, there's that song is a very Beatlesque kind of thing. Before we jump into that, I do want to remember one thing about On Fire. The guitar solo, there's a weird lick that has got this augmented scale thing. And the very first part of the lick comes from Zombie Wolf. So when you listen to it, there's a pattern that is a little interstitial thing from Zombie Wolf that George Duke played on, I don't remember which kind of keyboard it was, but there's just like the very first shape of that line comes from Zombie Wolf. So there's all these little, fragments of things always in the background. It's again, that thematic coherence kind of thing.
I am always hearing things and more stuff to have to rehear the album. I still hear new stuff now after all these years.
Oh, well,
so
yeah,
it's a good thing. All right. So now back to Nothing.
Yeah, Nothing. I did a demo of that. In fact, I have the demo on my website as well. It's in that archival tracks folder. And that the picture that's in that archival thing is from Sicily. I played some music in a school, and these little school kids are sitting on the stairs behind me, wondering why there's a guy playing guitar in the middle of their hallway.
Is there anything special about this song?
It has probably my favorite guitar solo on the record. Between that and Funky 15. I mean, we didn't really go too much into Funky 15 other than some of the early textures of it, but the guitar solo on Funky 15 is reminiscent of a solo by another guy that I love named Jimmy Herring. He had a song called Lifeboat Serenade, and there's a record by the same name, but the song Lifeboat Serenade has him and Derek Trucks playing, and it's some of the greatest guitar playing ever recorded. I mean, I don't say that lightly. It's really amazing stuff. But there's this major minor kind of stuff that happens on that solo. And there's a real kind of interesting texture to the sound on there. But when it comes to Nothing, I'm using the guitar that Jimi Hendrix gave to my dad, that the Hendrix Strat. So there's a moment where I get this really intense fuzz face feedback, and it is so Jimi Hendrix. I mean, it's like when it happened, I was like, whoa, this is so cool. It's like I had this like for real Jimi Hendrix moment, and I was loud in the room, and I was by the amps, and you know, it was this really cool thing. But I think that solo is one of the more specific to my style, what has become my style of playing. That one and the other one that I was talking about from Funky 15, those two kind of represent what my lead guitar playing style has evolved into, probably more than anything else on the record.
There's a lot of great results in this whole thing. I mean, besides just Nothing. And Hummin',
that one is a song that was another demo. That was the other one that was from that era. That song changed the structure of it a little bit. We added one or two little parts and moved some things around, but the overall theme of that song, the chorus and the harmonies and all that stuff was on the original demo. And I sang all the parts on the original demo. On this one, there's a lot more people singing parts, but I just thought it kind of, you know, it's a universal thought, I mean, about life. I mean, you kind of just don't know what you're going to get, you know, but it's that humming in your ear, you know.
right?
But I feel like that song, I like the textures of the song, and I like that it's got some pop elements, but it's just a weird song too.
Well, yeah, the whole album, every song sounds completely different than the other one. You can't find two that sound together.
Yeah.
So actually, before we go any further, how did you figure out the track listing? Because it's important to do a good run order of an album.
Yeah.
We've never asked that in the past, but just for this one, how the heck did you figure out?
It over time, you start hearing things that feel like they might be good to go together or transition. And some of the transitions are meant to be funny, you know, like Dragon Master right into Truth is just kind of ridiculous. You know, you have this really heavy, crazy, loud thing, and then it goes right into the, you know, orchestral thing. And we didn't even talk about on Truth the fact that there's a
It's actually the next song. It's actually the next song we're going into. So
yeah,
there you go.
perfect. So I thought, I mean, I don't remember the song order, so maybe Truth. I thought it went right after Dragon Master, but
No, Truth is Nothing, Humming, then Truth. And I'd like to add Buddy Gill, actually, Austin Buddy there. He was asking about this song too. So
okay, well, Buddy is another great guy, a friend of mine, a great member of the community, and he's a great guitarist as well. But I guess there's something about this song that he connects with. For me, the melody of this song, and I think he had some other question about
the chords,
that it had a B major seventh chord,
yes,
in which I've said before, I don't like a particular voicing of the B major seventh chord because it sounds too cheesy to me. And I specifically used it in the song just because I wanted to make sure that I could use it without feeling aggression towards it. So
Therapeutic.
it's in there, yeah. But the solo on that song is the melody is all played on a fretless SG. So I had a specific guitar made by Gibson where it's a Gibson fretless SG, and this guitar actually had auto tune built into it. And the idea for that was maybe there would be a way that it could interpolate what I was playing and allow me to play chords that could be more in tune, because you can't put your fingers in the right places on a fretless instrument and maintain that as you move, because there's too many differences in what happens, string length and all this kind of stuff. But it actually works, but the more you try to tune it, it then starts making stuff sound chromatic instead of just sliding. So it was pretty effective for being able to play single note melody stuff, but I had to sort of play with the threshold so it didn't make things go chromatic. I needed to still be able to slide. And it also had a sustainiac built into it. So I had infinite sustain, so you could play as if it's a bowed instrument. And so the main melody is played on a cleaner sound, and it had flat wound strings on it. And it's played on a cleaner sound, and then the solo is played on a distorted sound. But the melody itself it's a kind of a Beatlesque kind of thing overall, I would say, but it's also like Willy Wonka to me. You know, I played golf once with David Wolper, who was the man who, he made a lot of well-known films and things, but he made the original Willy Wonka movie. And he had a book that came out that had an actual Wonka golden ticket in it. And so I have that golden ticket, and this was sort of like inspired by that golden ticket, you know? So, but the funny thing about David Wolper was when I met him, he was probably almost 80. And when we played golf, we played in a group format where it was a scramble. And so that meant everybody could hit a drive, and then you could choose whose drive was the best, and you could hit from that location, and then you play the ball in. But I was hitting the ball a decent, length at that time. So he liked being able to have a longer drive because it made it easier for him to get to the next place. But he did not know my name. He never, like, it took months and months for him to know my name. And I played with him a bunch of times. But this other friend of ours who would like set up some of these golf tournament things, he would contact this guy, Steve DeMarco, and he'd say, hey, make sure Tweezers is on my team. Tweezers. That was what he called me for like months.
Good one. You hear your golf stories. Is there anything? So actually, I like the solo on that too, on Truth. That's a really good piece too.
And that one, the tone of it is one of my favorites on the record.
Yeah.
It reminds me a little bit of, especially when it first starts, a little bit of like a Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers kind of sound there, you know?
It feels like it really jumps out, like all of a sudden it's there.
Yeah, and then the end of it has the goal was to make it sound like it was re-entering the atmosphere and just kind of burning up as it came in. So you hear it just kind of, it goes haywire and starts getting a little weird and distorted.
So what's really cool is like, so what if it's the next song? But in a lot of these songs in this part, you have a lot of beginnings, like a couple riffs. You see how it's going one way, like it sounds bluesy or whatever, one of some of these songs, and it just takes a left turn right away on a lot of these last songs.
Yeah, I think that I've always liked, especially if there's like a rhythmic element that you think, oh, it goes like this, and then suddenly you find out, oh, it doesn't go like that at all. You've been rhythmically tricked. There's not so many of those, but there's a few on the record. But I always like that kind of thing. But I also like when something does take an unexpected turn. It's just, I mean, I grew up hearing my dad's music
Right.
before I heard any other music. So at the point where I started hearing regular radio music, I always thought, why aren't they doing all these other things? You know, like where's the rest of it? And that's kind of what always stuck whenever I was making my own music.
Which in these last couple tracks, so we were bamboozled by Dweezil. So let's do. What about what if?
What if that one is? I mean, I had an original demo of that, which is pretty much it's the same format. It's just slightly different textures. There's this kind of descending chord progression that happens in between some of the verses, and each time it has a little different length and a different melody that goes over it. And there's a sound that I used that had a little bit of a ring modulator, so it makes you can still detect the pitch, but then there's this kind of robotic element that's mixed into it because of that ring modulator. And that is one of the fun little sidewindery kind of things where I was trying to, as the chords move down, bounce around and every so often hit the major third within that chord. So it's just jumping around until it kind of, you don't really know how you're flowing through this thing. It just snakes through there. And that's kind of just by design.
So what about these lyrics though too? They're kind of fun. Like, did you put a lot of time into them? Did you kind of just put them out there and then tweak them as you went?
That one was a really old song. I mean, that one was from back in the early 90s. And it was just kind of, it was sparked after meeting this girl that seemed like she would be interesting to get to know. But then it was like, I don't know if this is going to be a good idea. So that was kind of the impetus of a song like that.
Well, it's interesting because like a lot of lyrics from a lot of people you can kind of put into like other types of artists, but your lyrics are not like any other artist.
Well,
So
I mean,
some artists do that. They'll be like, "Oh, I wrote the song 10 years ago. I feel embarrassed now." But that's why you're like, "I wrote that 10 years ago and it still works because you're not dated. It's not, you don't have a timestamp on you."
well, I mean, you know, the lyrics are all, it's really hard to write good lyrics. So every so often you stumble on a couple of things that work well, but you know, to have lyrics that work in a song where you go, wow, that's an incredibly powerful statement, and the music sets it up, and then you get this emotional impact. I don't necessarily write songs like that. I'd love to be able to write songs like that, but I haven't spent a lot of time writing music for a while. I've been learning other things and doing other things, and so I like the idea of being able to do that. Maybe one day I will feel like I've accomplished that in some way, but you know, there's certain songs that every time you hear it, you go, wow, that's amazing how that works.
Yeah. No, they're good. They're just fun. They're like funny, smart lyrics. A lot of them usually. Like you kind of think about it and make you smile.
I try.
Jaws of Life.
So that one, there was a guy that was
It's a great title for a song too.
yeah, thanks. There was a guy that was really annoying that I worked with. He was a producer of a TV show, and he just seemed to have bad idea after bad idea, and he just kind of drove me nuts. But that song was kind of written from the perspective of somebody who thinks they got it all together, but you know, out of nowhere, they're going to be in a situation where they're going to need the jaws of life to get them out, you know, because this guy's just walking through thinking everything that he's doing is like amazing. But he was just, I don't know, it was just really tough to deal with a guy like this. And that was kind of the inspiration.
Well, you at least got a song out of it, right?
Yeah.
So we get the last two. Just the Way She Is.
Another one that was from back in the day that was really that record I was telling you I was going to make in the early 90s. That was another one from that.
Any
But
guitar parts standing out for you in that one?
well, the original the riff that it's from dates all the way back to before Shampoo Horn, and it was the song was originally called Island of Mind, and that was the name of that riff. And the that particular thing, I have a cassette of us playing that song without any vocals, but just playing that song, and it's all the same parts, and there's a solo on it and stuff. So that might end up in the archival section soon, because I've been going through some cassettes and some DATs and things from back in the day, just looking for stuff. And there's things that I found that I totally forgot about, songs, things that we played at rehearsal that never got recorded, but like complete songs with crazy riffs and all kinds of stuff.
Put them up. People love them. They can use the playlist part too.
Yeah, the playlist is a pretty cool feature on the site. I don't know if people have experimented with it. I was going to start making some playlists that I could share just for fun. But there's some new cool things that are coming to the site in general that we've been working on. So I think that's a cool thing, though, to remind people, if they haven't even noticed, there is a way for them to just choose. If you're looking at the music that you're listening to on the site, there's a little thing to the left that says playlist, that you can press the plus button, which will create the playlist. And then to add the song in, there's a little music note next to the song. If you hit that music note, it puts it into the playlist. And then you can have songs that you can listen to in whatever order you want, if that appeals to you.
Yeah, it's pretty intuitive. I think I made a little snippet of that to show. It's really easy and quick for people to see. To rock it out. So Billionaire's Son is funny. Let's, before we even talk about the music, talk about the story.
Okay, so that again was from that same era, and
that song. It
started with, I had a baritone guitar, an acoustic guitar, and I wrote the music for that. And I wanted it to have these little changes, including this thing where it felt like you went back to the roaring 20s, and it's like this little clarinet solo thing that happens. And the music was written without any lyrics in mind, but the impetus to create that storyline of how it ends up on the record is when it jumps to that clarinet solo, the line that precedes it, I'm pretty sure it says he spent his father's money overnight. And so then it goes to like, okay, now it's the party scene. Like, that clarinet solo is like, okay, he's spending all the money right now. But the concept of it was, okay, the guy spent all the money, but that must have pissed the parents off. And who did it piss off the most? The mom. And the mom is like, well, I'm going to have to take care of this. And then it has this dark ending, but you don't really know what happens, but you kind of know what happens.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of like a cliffhanger, kind of weird audio movie.
And it's a great ending too for a sonically eclectic album, to put it off there.
Thanks. Yeah, it was a weird one, but oddly enough, at the time in 2016 when I was making the record, I had intended to write all new songs that were really specific to what the band could do at that time, but I just didn't have enough time in between getting ready for tours and all this stuff. So I had other songs that had been written that I was like, we could just learn these and record these, and it would just take us a couple of days. So let's just speed through these, and then I'll write stuff and do another record another time. But, it's been since 2016, and I haven't made a record of original music since then, but I've also not had a specific place to work from and now I do. So at some point, I'll be able to record my own music and do some other things. But I want to also work with other bands. I like to do some producing and work with different kinds of artists in different ways. And
Right.
the studio is set up to be able to do all kinds of experimental recordings with different microphones. Like there's some mics that are just like the equivalent of human ears, that it's a 5.1 kind of surround thing. And so if you use that to be the base of your recording, especially for acoustic instruments, it localizes the space that you're in. And then if you do in Atmos, you can recreate the exact space. So if you have something that happened, let's say you had a sound effect and
Yeah.
you wanted it to spin around your head, if you walked or it took whatever the device was and you spun it around just by moving it around the head of the microphone, it's going to have this very realistic thing that you're going to sense going around your head. So writing music with things like that in mind to actually build into that spatialized location is things I want to experiment with, and then be able to recreate for the actual audio experience with headphones or in a room that has speakers that can reproduce that. So it's just a fascinating time to be able to play with music and recording technology. So that's what I'm interested in.
That brings me to one question with this. If you produce it this way, or anybody does Atmos that way specifically, and it comes out, if you just listen to it like on a regular speaker set or flat speakers on a computer or something small where you don't have it in both ears, we'll be missing things. Like back when you hear a guitar solo, like you get an AMF on one side and you hear like a Van Halen song, also just it's quiet for a minute because there's no Eddie in that side.
Right. So you try to avoid that kind of stuff, and you try to have situations where there's not going to be blank spots or phase cancellation of different things. But generally what happens is if you are making something, let's say in Atmos, you will always have a stereo mix that can be playable on a device that only has two speakers. It will take all the information that is expansive that would be in Atmos, and it folds it down into what is called the binaural stereo mix. And in that, if you had headphones on, you will hear stuff that feels like it goes in front of you or behind you. That will take place in regular headphones. You don't have to have special headphones for
Right.
that.
I just mean like, because a lot of us are on computers just like now, so you're hearing it flat, these little.
Exactly. So obviously you're not going to get the true benefit of what Atmos can do or what a binaural mix will do if you're in that kind of environment. But being that you could use just standard headphones or earbuds, you could hear a binaural mix and it would give you a more expanded sensation beyond normal stereo. But Atmos, if you're in a room that is set up to have speakers in the ceiling, like in here, you can see that there are speakers in the ceiling and there's speakers around. So, and there's five subwoofers in here. This is like, when you hear music in this room, it's like going on a roller coaster ride. I mean, it's like, it's an audio movie to the extreme. So it's a pretty intense way to hear music. Not everybody's going to have a chance to hear it that way, but there are more and more places, clubs and venues that are being able to put in systems that can play back Atmos or multi-channel stuff. So live concerts can start to move into that area. And so there may be places, especially in cars, where you're going to have speakers up here and all around, and you're going to be able to hear some of this stuff. So it's definitely worth experimenting with this stuff and writing music to be immersive in that way. But I want to be able to try out all the different ways that it can be explored.
Another Atmos question for you, actually. What about people that are doing them now? They're putting them out. Is it true Atmos? Is there a way to kind of like do a lame version of it? Because like with Apple's doing these weird mixes of people's mixes that weren't originally done as Atmos. Is that sort of not a full Atmos? What is that?
So it really depends, because you can do various things to make something have that spatial quality. And
Right.
there's different things, there's different technologies, or it goes by different names. There's spatial audio. Spatial audio is more akin to this specific pair of headphones that Apple makes that actually has head tracking software. So it will change the mix depending on where you're looking. So that's either a good thing or a bad thing, because you don't necessarily have control over what someone's going to hear when they turn their head.
I didn't
But
know that.
yeah, so there's all these kind of other things that are being implemented within this world. But Atmos is really like set up for movie theaters, and it's a very specific kind of thing by Dolby, where you can rely on the fact that if you do it the proper way, it will play back the way it's supposed to in any room that has a setup that is correctly calibrated for Atmos. So you need to have this standardized calibration so that you're not ending up with things where the subs are too loud or all this stuff, because a lot of people are not going to have any idea what that is. So there has to be something that automatically does it and does it correctly. But to your question, you can take anything and make it into an Atmos mix, especially if you have the individual source material, because it's really just about panning something and putting a spatialized reverb or delay or whatever you want. And it just makes it immersive because now it's around you, it's above you. You can have things go up and over, you can have things spin, you can have them coming from any which way. But whether that's musical or not depends on the song. And so it's not, you don't have to just make wacky stuff happen. It might be effective at times, but it's not necessarily what you have to do. But the problem that you also run into is that sometimes people will make a mix and it's coming from stems, which are different stereo, like just stereo drums, stereo vocals, stereo guitar, stereo keyboards. And so if they stack together, they make a decent stereo mix. But if you start trying to move them in spaces or put something else with it to make it have a delay or whatever, you don't necessarily have the best result, especially if you take the same information and you double it and you move it somewhere else, which is what people do with stems. It just ends up sounding like mono because you're having the same information without really the spatial information that your ears can detect what's true stereo. So it's when the stuff is done with stems, it's less effective unless you have mono sources involved.
And the reason why I'd ask that is when this first came out, because people were remixing them in Atmos of somebody like the Beatles, like they're doing it also.
There's some good ones. There's some good ones.
No, but I'm saying, but if it's not a good mix, or even if you're the producer and you're like, well, I was known for producing that album, and also there's a mix now that looks like it's tied to it because there's never always good labeling on like the sites.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And it looks like Mr. So-and-so did the mix and they're like, this is awful. It's like a bad Atmos. And it's like, that's not my mix. So it feels like some of the producers are getting these weird credits that they don't want to their original songs.
It may be. And
that was a thing for a while that producers were pretty upset about.
Yeah. Well, because in the rush to get certain things out quickly, I don't think there was a huge focus on quality or exploiting the real benefits of it.
Yeah. That is my question. I hope somebody else learned something too on that one. Thank you. So sure. We'll pick this up again and
sure. And like I didn't even realize that it felt like we missed some songs, but I guess we talked about all of them.
No, I've kept us on track. I had them all done.
No, I just don't remember the order. So
I keep us on track. You have all the other important information.
Yeah. So it was a fun record to make, and it couldn't have been made without the support of the community that really jumped in at the ground level to do it. And so I was happy that people felt like they wanted to be a part of it, and hopefully they still enjoy the record. I definitely learned a lot of things. I worked with different mix engineers and stuff. At this point, I know what I would do if I may one day mix that whole record in Atmos, because it would be a good candidate for it, but I at least I learned so many things that I was like, well, I could do all this stuff myself now. So
It was like school. Would you do another like your own like pledge because you got your own site now set up and you have the whole thing? You could kind of almost create your own
well,
grassroots thing
yeah,
again.
that's the thing is the Reward Music, which hosts my website,
Right.
is available for anybody to have to be able to use all the tools that it has. And one of the tools that's built in is an automatic way to do crowdfunding
Yeah.
if you had a project that you wanted to do. So, yeah, that's something I might consider doing if it becomes something big enough that requires a larger budget to do something and to be able to get the help needed to make it happen. But a lot of people don't realize how much it costs to make records, and that artists really don't make very much money at all on a record. They probably lose money making records because of the way things work these days. The majority of artists spend a lot more to make a record than they get back in sales. And that's just the nature of the way the business is. It shouldn't be that way. But when people move more towards having a specific group of supporters that they can interact with, they have a better chance of
At least making a wash.
well, yeah, of having a long-term relationship with the fans that support them. And we've always just been looking for ways to make it possible, make it easier for artists and fans to connect and have them have the ability to reach each other. That is the real important part for artists going forward, because social media, yeah, you can use it and you can do all these things, but you don't actually have the direct connection with people. You don't have their email. You don't have the permission base to say, hey, can we interact with each other and then keep this relationship going. And that's what you would do if you were a mom and pop store of any kind. You have to have, from the business angle of it, at the very least, an artist is a mom and pop store. They're like, hey, I have a product.
Yep.
I can make it available to you. I want to be in touch with you. I want to know what you like, what you don't like. I want to be able to have this ongoing relationship. And it used to be that there were stores all over the place that would sell these products, and artists would get some kind of royalty-based payment from the sale of these records, but that really doesn't exist anymore. They used to make more money on the publishing of the music, and that also doesn't exist anymore because the sales aren't there. So it's really a crazy industry. And then, of course, COVID made touring impossible. So it took all the ability for artists to earn money from what they do. But yet all these other companies that do stuff to present music to people, whether it's Spotify or other systems like that, they are making money on the service industry part of it, the subscription part of it, not the song part of it. And so the artists don't get the benefit of anything. The company gets the money for the subscription. They don't share it with the artist. It's like nano pennies that go back to the artist per listen of a song. So it's a really difficult time to be an artist. And the business side of it is so treacherous because, let's face it, at the end of the day, you can't actually be in business if you're not selling something and receiving money for the thing that you're selling. If you just give it away for free, which is what most people are doing with their music, you're not in the music business. You're in the giving away business. So it's very difficult.
You want to be a musician and not earn money, you got to become a jazz musician. How it goes.
Well, yeah, they're really good at that.
That's a joke. How do you become a jazz, make $1 million? Start with 2 million?
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah, and that's why it's important to have a site like you have for everybody, and we'll keep pounding it out there and spreading the word that keep supporting the artists.
Yeah, there's going to be some really cool new features that we're going to launch in the coming weeks. because we keep developing new things that's going to be related to the fan experience um, as well, because the whole interaction needs to be as as fun as you can make it and as exclusive as you can make it, so that you feel like when you're interacting with an artist, you're getting something from them directly on their own site that you're not going to get from Instagram or Facebook or all that stuff. And that ends up being a very important element to it. But people, artists, they want to take the easy way out most of the time, and they want to just say, "Oh, I posted my thing." It's like, well,
Well, this is an example right here. You've done 1 billion hours today.
yeah,
You found a time to put, another hour, 2 hour into your 25-hour day as it is for content, fresh
yeah.
stuff. And that's what the show is built on. I've read comments about fans over the years, myself belonging forever, asking about albums. I've had questions. So this is an evolution of,
Well, it's the exact thing that we're talking about put into motion. And it was put into motion because we were able to connect through the site.
Yeah.
And you said, "Hey, what if we did this?" And I said, "Hey, that's great. I would love to be able to do something like that. If you're able to help, then great, let's do it." And that's how this kind of thing became possible. But this wouldn't be possible for an artist if they were trying to do this on any other kind of platform. So that's the thing that is, I think, exciting about what's possible here. But it's also, I like being able to have the community be part of something. There's a lot of people that have done a lot of great things over the years to support the projects I've worked on and come to a lot of shows. And I'm looking for ways to be able to thank people for doing that, especially when I'm not able to be on tour.
is touring gonna be different for you? I know that was a question. I can't even remember who asked that one for you.
It's at the moment, I still can't really wrap my head around how to do it, not because of a fear of a health situation. It's financially, as a business owner, it's more tricky to do it. It's so much more risky at this point because
When
they're
it's stable though?
pardon?
But when it's stable though, I mean, I know like right now, for your thing, you've talked about before that it's the model of yours is it has to be legit because you have so many moving parts. You can't take a hit. Once everybody's out working again, though, will that be a thing? Because you've got a lot of projects going on now in your studio.
Yeah, so it's a challenge because people generally don't know that if you're touring, an artist most likely isn't going to make any money on the tour if they're the one that basically puts up all the money to tour, all the expenses before you even get out on the road, rehearsals, everything, bus, hotels, all these things. If you get to a point where you're moving along on this tour, but then it gets shut down before the last 2-3 weeks of the tour, that's typically where a tour is going to break even or make money, if it does. But if you get shut down for some reason, or you have cancellations and it starts causing problems and delays, now you're in a financial hole that you can't get out of. And I don't have, after 2 years of not touring, I don't have the ability to then be put into a situation where there would be that much risk. So I still don't see it being feasible.
Right. No, I just meant like in the long run, like once this does settle out, there will be a point in a couple of years where you know how much you can tour, or how much the rules will be laid out finally at some point. This is going to either level out somehow.
Yeah, one would hope.
I think the question is, I think fans and on the forums, what I'm kind of gathering is your heart still in to still do, because you were pounding it, you were just going nonstop.
Well, yeah, we played, I don't know how many, it was, I'm going to guess that it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,500 shows in 14 years straight, which was the equivalent of almost 6 months out on the road out of every year over the last, 14 years. And now we've had 2 years off. But COVID was what shut it down. but that was it's a challenge to do that.
It's changed perspectives. A lot of artists. Some artists that were like, I can't never do it. Now I've talked to a lot of artists
Yeah.
outside of the show, and they're all like, oh, I don't know if I want to go back on the road so much. I don't know, like besides COVID, like it's changed a lot of mindsets. And now that's just them touring forever. You, on the other hand, want to work with other bands. You got your other songs and soul stuff. You have this big sandbox, toy box now that so you don't even go anywhere with. So that makes it more of a challenge,
Yeah. So I don't know what the balancing act is yet. It's just sort of becoming known to me.
You just couldn't be like, I don't have enough time. You gotta copyright that. I don't have enough time.
Yeah.
On the shirt, Dweezil Zappa. I don't have enough time.
Yeah, I'm not the only one. Yeah.
All right, Dweezil. We'll come back with some more shows, everybody, and keep the comments coming because I read them. Dweezil reads them.
Yeah. Thanks.
We'll write them.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Thank you.